Terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight. I've been feeling restless. Can you see me breathing? Standing here without you. I can see it's midnight. Can I live without you? I'm bleeding too far gone. I see it too far gone. I'm screaming. I'm screaming. I'm bleeding too far gone. I see it too far gone. I'm screaming. I'm screaming.
So, let's watch a little visualizer. Today we're going to go through a new single, Conflict. This is on my YouTube page. Check that out. I've got some stuff up there. It's kind of interesting. This is the song we're going to break down today. I'll show you everything.
Is there a war in your mind? Is there a war in your mind?
This footage is so
Is
cool.
there a war in your mind?
And here is the project. It is very big. So we're going to walk through everything here. I mean, most of it. Obviously, there's 119 tracks. So actually, let me make sure I have the right song. Okay. Let me do something. Oversampling is not on. So hopefully. Okay. So let's talk inspiration here. I had been sort of struggling, not struggling, but getting a little tired of trap music. And that's not to say that the genre is bad or like there's not cool artists that are doing cool things. Um, just personally, I've always kind of liked doing a lot of different genres, but I've sort of mainly focused on like trap music. And I just basically what happened was I do a workout outside sometimes, and I listen to different music, just trying to find new music. And I came across a song that I thought was the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. And this is like 2 years ago, probably, right about the time I stopped doing live streams. And this is the song here. It's called Voices by Carbon. And I probably can't play a lot of this. Let's just see if I can do a little something something here. This is the song. And it was like a really cool mid-tempo, but not like the typical mid-tempo where you have like these heavy dubstep basses and aggressive sounds that were just like, overpowering. It was an interesting take on mid-tempo, and it really inspired me. And that song actually really was the one that like set me down this path of mid-tempo kind of housey sort of stuff. And I wanted to recreate that, especially the sub bass and how cool and like loud and clean the sub bass was. So yeah, let's dive into it. We can start with just sort of the layout. I like to use these markers here in Logic to just show what's happening where. Intro 1.1, drops. I made long drops on this one. There's, what is that? 8 times 4 is 32 bars of a drop, and then a little break, and similar thing here. So yeah, this just helps me stay organized. I can put the key here. It's an F minor. Let me actually throw that up here. It should say F minor. Save as default. Okay. And then I might have chords here sometimes in the notes, but I don't. The BPM is 100 beats per minute. So in that mid-tempo range. And let's just dive into the kick drum. Kick drums I like to have short and punchy. This is the kick. It's actually a little more wubby than other stuff. Let me pull open, where is it? This. Should be able to. Let me just throw this, make this really small up here so you can see everything. Very clicky. In the beginning, if you pull open the EQ here, you've got a lot of high-end information there, so that helps it sort of punch through the mix. It looks like it's peaking into G, and then I just added some, what do you call these? Dynamic EQ bands for a little bit of the wubbiness. This is a Cymatics kick. Shout out Cymatics, I guess. I haven't used their stuff in like a long time, but yeah, I mean, really nothing too crazy there. And that's the only thing, and that's the kick. The only thing is in the intros, I drop the volume a little bit, just so the kick and the drops hit a little bit louder. But besides that, it's your classic 4 on the floor. Nothing too crazy going on here. And then, if you haven't noticed already, I group everything into separate categories so I can process things all at the same time. And on that, I have a gain plugin. This is actually in mono. I'm a little bit surprised, but probably doesn't matter too much. You can see that right there. There's the imager. So that's going straight up and down. And then this is my favorite clipper. I'm not even using it because if I wanted to, I would take the peaks off. I would do something like this and just flatten it out a little bit so there's not any crazy peaks and let it clip. There is this little NYC. This is a distortion. So if I just, come on, next kick, where is it? That really beefs it up. And then this is something that gives a little bit of high end. This is a great plugin. And then it looks like one more EQ, shaving off some stuff you don't hear on the low end and high end and giving a little bit more boxiness in 500. Nothing too crazy on the kick drum. It's actually a little bit longer than I was expecting it to be. I haven't looked at this project in a while, but let's go into the snare or the clap. Again, not too much going on in here. This is a cool little layer. If I just play this one with a little bit of a reverb throw, I think this is a sample I made. So that's pretty sweet. Just a little bit of interesting stuff to it. Let's keep the kick and we'll sort of introduce stuff. Well, actually, so you probably noticed that this isn't like a very strong transient. This is the main snare layer. We've got an EQ cutting out a lot of this low end, a little bit too crazy going on up here in the highs. What is this doing? A little bit of high end spread, and then I've got a long reverb that I use at the end here, I think, as a throw. Yeah. Just to echo out into the transition. So that's like a nice little like. It's always nice to use. I like doing reverb throws because it's with elements that are in the song already, and you can sort of create your own effects with them, and it keeps it a little bit more like cohesive. So you're not just like throwing random samples in, which I do a lot still, but it keeps the sounds a little bit more cohesive. This is just a reverse of that previous, of the same snare, just for a little bit of flow, let's say. Over here, what is this guy? Oh. Here's our halftime snare. Right here. So we've got some reverb on it. Not doing any transient shaking. Oh, a little bit. I'm taking the attack down a little bit. It was just probably a little bit too plucky for my liking. Probably a similar story. Cutting out lows and then accentuating F. Because it's an F minor, so I wanted it to be really in key. So I just put a couple peaks there. And then reverb and probably a sweep here. Same sweep. So yeah, the interesting thing about this snare, so what I wanted to talk about here, basically, I've actually faded in the snare. So if I let me just show you what it would sound like without this fade. And the reason I'm taking out the transient is because the transient already exists in the kick. I don't need to double stack the transients, so I just literally faded in the snare. Still have a nice sharp transient here when you combine the kick and the snare on the same note. But the kick is carrying all of that transient. I didn't double it up. That would have caused a lot of crazy clipping and it would have been really hard to. at least in my opinion, it would have been really hard to mix. I'm sure other people have done it that are better than me in music production. But the group, taking out lows, a 2BQ, which is, I use this a lot. It's like an emulation of a vintage EQ. Just a little bit of drive for some pleasant distortion, let's say. Everybody's favorite, clipper. Taking out a little bit of peaks there, nothing too crazy. And also turning the tail down, turning the transients and the tail down. So you can mess with the transients here. You could bring them in, or you can make them. So just sort of dialing that in a little bit. Then we have soothe on the harshness up here. It's not doing a lot, but it just felt a little bit harsh in the high ends. We love soothe. And then just the visual, where am I at? So together you have your classic 4 on the floor. This is a little bit more aggressive. You know, it's still a mid-tempo song, so I wanted the kick and snare to be driving. And the other elements is where I could sort of play around with like being a little bit more creative. Okay, let's talk about the sub. Let me unhide some stuff here. Okay, here is the sub. I'll just unmute this. I don't know why it's being crazy like this. Let's turn. I think it's just a little bit too much for the computer right now. Dang, I really wanted to show this in a cool way. Let me try this. Actually, no, I don't want to do that. Okay. Maybe it's when I unhit everything. Actually, maybe I can do it like this. All right, let's just talk about it. I'll talk about the serum patch, and then we'll get everything re-hidden again so we can talk about it. Okay, sub. Basically, with the sub and the way I was able to get it so thick or loud or whatever you want to call it is in here. And essentially, I took a sine wave, and you can add frequencies or bands to it. I don't know exactly what it's called. The idea is to, and I can actually probably, like, I don't know how to do this, like maybe maximize or something. The idea is to have the sine wave, but have it in a way where the peaks of the wave stay flat in these regions for longer, and essentially that means the sub's going to be louder. So if you had a typical sine wave, it would just reach the peak and go straight back down, reach the peak and go straight back down. But here you can kind of see it hovers at the you know, maximum level or minimum level, maximum level here. So the subwoofer's moving in and out like a little bit slower, but it's staying at those peaks. I guess that's probably the best way to explain it. I've watched a lot of videos. Mr. Bill has a good video on this. Mr. Bill? Yeah. On how to get your subs really loud. And essentially I blended that with a square wave. So basically you're trying to make the saw wave look like a square wave, so to speak. And there's a little bit of modulation here on the cutoff going up and down with this, I think. What is this? Let's go to the matrix. LFO ones on the amps, just the amps. and then the coarse pitch, do a little bit of like a pitch bend in the beginning. But this is kind of the secret on how to get your subs loud. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but for a serum patch, that's where I went, and then that's what it sounds like. It's in mono. There's some pitch bends every once in a while here, just to keep it interesting. Bum, bum, bum. And then here. Bum, 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 bum. So you keep it a little bit interesting, but it's nothing crazy. It's sidechained heavily. It's 16th notes. The sub's really important. What else did I do? Actually, let me go back to this. What else is on this? So we've got an EQ doing a little bit of cutting here and there. Nothing going on here. And then this is what I use for the sidechain. So nothing too crazy there. And yeah, that's pretty much the sub. It's the only sub. As you go further along in the song, the rates change. So like this is the halftime drop. And the sub is at a level that it's not clipping. My computer really is not liking me right now. So yeah, what else about the sub can I say? That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's mixed to basically the loudest level possible. Yeah, the little secret on the sine wave, sort of turning it into like a sine/square wave and keeping the maximum levels flatter for longer. That was the strategy that was used here, and I think it did a pretty good job. Let's talk about bass. What's this one? This is my own sample. There's a lot going on here. This is a great plugin for a cool formant. It really sucks that it's just going to keep doing this every time I try to unhide things. That's how I mean, everything's all in one project, so it is kind of a lot. And I'm streaming, but that's just a nice little, like... So this is layered over this super big 808, which is just a sample from Uno. Let me just highlight this itself. I don't think there's anything really going on too crazy with this. Oh, I added a lot of white noise with texture. So this adds white noise. Oh, it's actually working now. So without this, that's basically the raw sample, which is crazy, but I wanted more high end. And this basically just adds white noise to it. And then to let it ring out a little bit afterwards, because I felt like if I didn't have something ringing out, let me mute this. It just felt kind of empty. So I added a delay. And that basically is adding this like this high cut, so none of the low ends are in there. If I were to, that's just gonna muddy everything up. So all that's out of there, and it's automated in at the end to get this. It's almost acting like a reverb. So yeah, that's that. So together, let me mute this. There we go. All right. So the idea was to just have a really big introduction here. That synth in a little bit, but the sub follows the synth, which is cool. So reverb, again, these are little sweeps here. This is actually on the whole chain. These little reverb sweeps, these guys. It's not sounding the way it should sound right now because I'm clicking on the whole group, but there's that. And then I bring the sidechain in. What do we got going on here? A layer. This actually has a little bit of a melody you can hear. This was going to be it's the same thing, same as above here, but essentially I wanted this to be the lead to begin with, but I found a cooler way to make something cooler. So this ends up being a little layer with a little bit of clickiness. So when you almost like a percussion. That stays for both drops. So we got going on here. Another layer. So it's sort of following this guy up here. So let me just silence these two. This was used as an accent in the second half of the drop. Like a sort of introduction to the big, sort of mid-tempo-y bass line. What else? Another layer. This was actually the same. Really need to think of a better way to do this more efficiently. This preset is legit. A huge super saw, basically. That's just a nice little like da-na-na. So I opened up a filter there to get the high end in. Okay, let's talk about this guy. Here's your main one. Right here. Let's talk about the serum patch. This is a patch that was edited a little bit, or sort of copied. It's a huge, massive super saw. Yeah, basically two saw waves, I think that's a triangle wave, and white noise, and essentially it's compressed and distorted like crazy, and it's even detuned a little bit. So if I go into the matrix, you can see mod 1 is detuning. I think it's what is it? It's doing something interesting. Oh, macro one. So it's changing the course pitch here and just detuning things a little bit. From there, EQ. I'm really sorry it's doing this. Decapitator is really busting it open. This is a new plugin, like top distortion plugin for stuff like this. And then another secret is actually automating the width. So you can see that's this channel right down here. This is a plugin from Polyverse. And essentially it makes things wider without really destroying too much. So I've modulated this up and down a little bit to like as the bass is coming in, it's like getting like wider as it's swelling up, or like getting tighter, and just keeps it a little bit interesting, especially when you're listening with headphones. That was the thing that Dr. Fresh really liked, which was pretty cool to hear him say he loved this this bass line. So essentially what you get is something that sounds like this. I think I missed something. There's a... let me go back into here because... yeah, so this LFO is controlling the white noise, and if you listen carefully, you can hear in the high end there's like a fluttering white noise. If you listen really carefully, it's going... again, more movement just to keep it interesting. There's little, small, tiny MIDI notes that like keep it interesting. Let me bring in actually the everything else here. My computer is starting to hate me. You hear that like... so you get like those little like and that's just MIDI notes that are playing in different octaves right here. Keeps it kind of interesting. This is obviously high cut as well. So we're taking all the subs out of it because I have a separate sub. So. It's a really nice bass. I was very happy with how that turned out. What else we got going on in here? I think that's pretty much it. What is this? Yeah, just keep it interesting. These are like little, just sort of fills. To the second drop. Just the same layers following the halftime sub. This continues. These are still, some of them are still going at the same rate just to keep that groove, but mostly gone to like a halftime, like a little bouncy thing, and then yeah, so this sounds really sweet. Actually, let me keep the kick and the snare and the sub, sure. Those little like, just keeping the groove. And that's just all little MIDI notes here. Just playing them in to where it sounds good. You got to keep a little bit of keeps a little groove, keeps it interesting. Yeah, the second drop was just a little halftime thing, so no problem. Okay, now to one of the main sounds we have. That is what I call the glitchies. One of the coolest sounds I think I've ever made, and you can tell there's a lot going on. What happens if we just take all that off? This is the source. So, I think these are samples from oversampled, and basically I had just pulled all of these out because I thought they sounded really cool. The initial song idea was nothing like what it sounds like now, but essentially I had these and I wanted this to be the lead, and over here is how I made it happen. So we can sort of step through this one by one. Almost all of this was experimental. So this is a stepping plugin, like a gate plugin. This is a preset that has been not automated, but just sort of modified a little bit. So it makes it a little bit more glitchy. I don't even know if this really would make a difference at the end, but essentially here you can change in the different steps at a rate and modulate different things like a filter or distortion, or in this case volume. Mix. So you get this sort of cool flume, like glitchy sort of thing, and then basically the rest of the sound, I believe, is done through this. This is another multi-effects plugin called Infiltrator, which has tons of great presets, and I found one that sounded cool. It's giving like a wavy, high, you can see high resonance filter here. Strange. So this is giving it like a 16th note. Well. Actually, let's see if we can find that. Yeah, right here. So there's your 16th note, and it's getting a really acidy, washed out, not washed out, but like sort of. So already we've gone from. Pretty cool. Isotope trash. I didn't want to open airdrop, but that's fine. So this is an effects preset. I feel like we're almost getting a little bit more, how do I say it? It's a little bit sharper, I guess. Louder, you're getting a lot more artifacts from it, and then we have. We're just sharpening it up with this 16th note, taking away a little bit of the transients, and all of a sudden you have this really interesting, like almost underwater sort of effect. I don't know what this is a sidechain for. This is actually the main sidechain, which I didn't have to do as a trigger. So now we're following, right here, at this stage, we're following the exact same pattern as the sub. Where is the sub? nothing too crazy in terms of the pattern. A 2BQ is probably just giving it a little bit. That sounds so cool. Disperser on an F, just giving it a little bit of more tonality, a little bit of high end with this, a little bit of high end. Just trying to make it more audible in the mix, basically. I think everything from here is mixing related, a little bit sharper on the transients. What is my compressor doing here? Just compressing it. Then we chop off the tops. Keep everything nice and even. A little bit of compression, a lot of air. Again, mixing related. Like, no creativeness here, and then we just chop out all the low end. There was probably a little bit too much going on in this region. And then let's go into the automations. So there is some interesting stuff here. Volume. Let me pull in everything else up to this point. So just cutting volumes out every once in a while. I actually lower the mix on the infiltrator. This gives it a little bit more of like so nothing too crazy really. In the second drop, the rates change. You have a nice little back and forth there. There's definitely more stuff that's going on here. Some of the effects in Infiltrator I'm automating, but again, this is just to taste. There's the speed and everything. It doesn't show everything, which is kind of annoying. So that's the glitches. And then it's being sent to a reverb bus, which is probably getting automated at certain points. Okay, let's go into the instruments. We'll solo these. Alright, here is, again, the same synth being used. This is on a triplet mode now. Yeah, nothing too crazy. It's a super saw, you know. It's a super saw. Definitely watch his YouTube video on how he makes this. It's super useful. It's a great super saw. I like to do where I drag an LFO to a high shelf here, and I use that to automate it with the volume. It gives it. I learned that from Eliminate. It gives it a little bit of like pluckiness. So that's pretty interesting. Here it's just delayed out like crazy. Actually, what else is post-processing wise? Just cutting some highs and some lows. This highs get brought back in towards the drop. So over here you have all the highs in there. Yeah. I liked the tremolo-ness of it. I thought it was an interesting sort of element as opposed to just. This is the same thing too, just no tremolo. You get to a point where you're making songs where it's like, okay, I shouldn't be adding any more complexity to it because there's certain elements you want people to focus on, and just the tremolo and the jitteriness of the synth was enough to have it to be interesting and a good opposition to. It's a good lead. All of these are the same preset with slight modification. So like in here, when you hear the little like, it's the same preset, and that bass note, after it goes, that little burp, same preset, nothing too crazy. That's definitely something I could be better at. In the second drop, we go back to the 16th, or not the 16th, the lots of reverb on the end of that, and then in the build-ups, you have the sub actually follows this synth too, so it's like a big. Let me put the sub in here. It's having a massive sub with this is just so cool. So you have that big hit. So there's that. This is a sample. I think I made this, or nothing too crazy on the instruments. We're chopping the tops off again with our favorite. You get the story at this point. The vocals. This is a splice sample. Are you that surprised?
Is there a war in your mind?
Little ultra voice.
Is there a war in your mind?
That's how it originally sounds.
Is there a war in your mind?
Is there a war in your mind?
I feel like it's very on brand of me to shift the formant down and the pitch too.
Is there a war in your mind?
That's basically it. And then an EQ.
War in your mind, mind.
So that's the main one, and then you also have over here. What's going on? This isn't good for me.
This isn't good for me.
Obviously, everything's sidechained here, but now we just bump it up an octave and a little bit of reverb.
This isn't good for me.
Important to low cut the reverb so you don't get the low end in there.
This isn't good for me.
A little bit of pluckiness there, which is kind of cool. You take I just chopped it up into 16th notes and faded them out. That's pretty cool, actually. Well, we got the nice little. Is there a harmony? This is just a harmony. You just change the pitch. Nothing too crazy. One of the things I like to do with vocals is have them act as instruments and keep the themes going out, especially when I'm using samples. So like you hear it, you know. So that's a nice like the little is you hear it in the song. So here's these plucks here. Same thing. I just chop them up. Do a huge fade so you just get the little pluckiness. These ones have a little bit more going on because they're more of a main element, a formant filter. Well, let's actually take everything off here. We'll bypass all of this right now. Formant filter. You get that like vocally growl sort of sound, pitch it. Sample delay gives it a stereo spread. You see it actually in here if I take this off. It basically delays the left channel of the sound 158 samples put to the right, so you get this very interesting sort of stereo thing going on in your head. So like you can hear in the drop not only are there, you know, a big bass, a big sub, everything, but there's chops of the vocals that keep the song interesting and help you tie back to the intros. And
It never was before.
This isn't good for me.
delay on the me there.
It never was before.
That's just a very reverbed out where it says, "Is there a war in your mind?" That's how the song actually starts too. This guy right here. Let's see if I have a. No, it's been bounced from something. Very much fading out, and then again, I'm using the elements of the song to make the effects, to keep it cohesive and interesting. Not interesting, but cohesive. Use the elements of the song to make the effects.
Is there a war in your mind?
That's just war, super reverbed out, but you hear that in the intro, and it's an important
War
part.
in your mind? Is there a war in your mind?
Utilize, I mean, that's the biggest thing from this song, honestly, is utilize what you're using as the effects.
Is there a war in your mind?
Everything is chopped up and stuttery. The second drop, just change the pitch of the pace up. Is there a war in your mind? That's a huge part of the second drop. Following the sub, following the super important. Very cool effects going on here. I mean, God, this song is complicated, you know. You just got to keep it interesting. I mean, without this, the second drop and the first drop probably is just going to sound stupid. Listen to that without any of these elements. I mean, it's cool. But when I add the effects in, so important. All of this glitchy stuff. It sounds cool to listen to on its own. These are all samples I found that I just drag them in. Rise into this. Sweeps. Keep it interesting. You know? Even in the first drop. There's not as much in the first drop, but you got to keep it interesting. Build up. You have a nice detuned riser. That sometimes affects my least favorite part of the song. It fades out into the first drop, but you know, this is all important stuff. This is a sample that I made. It's just distorted a little bit. I don't even know if it's a great key. Effects are super important. You have the nice little glitches here too.
Is there a war in your mind?
The effects are actually playing a major role. It's being automated in the 3D space. But gotta keep it interesting. Sweeps. It's just, you know, I can't stress it enough. Percussion. Sounds like it's not playing the right way. I don't know why I have the perks so low. That's more of like an effect. A nice little vocal chop. You probably don't hear it in the song. Again, chopping off anything that, you know, comes in too loud. Toms, drop percussion noise gate. What's going on here? I don't even remember, to be honest with you. Lots more percussions, it looks like. Oh, I think I know what I did. So this noise gate is just chopping out things in the middle to keep it a little bit more staticky. Watch how much sharper this gets when I bring this in. A nice groove. There's stuff that's pushed off, delayed off the grid. That's very important for groove and swing. Let me just do this with the drums. I don't know why. I usually organize it so that the drums and the percussions are all at the top, but for some reason. There you go. There's your groove, right? Same thing in the second drop. Nothing too crazy. I didn't go too crazy with the percussions here. These are mostly loops that are just sort of chopped up. Stuff's pushed off the grid, but yeah, that's basically the entire song. I know I kind of went through it a little bit fast, so we can talk about the master chain real quick before we close it here. So every time I do a master, I use the master assistant. That's how I did it this time, and I use it mostly for the dynamic EQ and a little bit of the equalizer. We needed a little bit more mid-range and a little less high-end. The exciter I split it up between frequency bands, so I'm just adding a little bit of distortion to the sub. The warm distortion I like a lot for the sub here, but you can tell everything below 100 hertz. Imaging, very important. Everything below 100 hertz again is being shoved into mono. We like our basses in mono. And then I follow like a staircase effect in the different bands where I'm increasing the width as we go up into, like, for example, this range. A little bit of width added there. And same thing in the high end. A little bit of width added there. And then you have a dynamic EQ, which helps of pushing things into limiters. I actually added back a little bit of high end. This is a great plugin that I've used quite a bit. Soothe on the master. Low fix. Maybe a dB and a half on that. Into a compressor. Very minimal compression, very slow attack to get the transients through, very fast release to not have it come, it actually adds a little bit of like bounce to it. In this case, I shoved it into a limiter. 6 dBs there, and then we have our favorite IM pusher, which is clipping it a little bit. Just to get a little bit more out. It's okay that it's clipping because it's an EDM song. And basically, if I go into here, upwards of -6 LUFS, which is good. And then I always check everything on a total balance control with that Carbon song. And that's pretty much it. I went through it relatively quickly. There's a lot going on. This is the beginning of a bunch of releases that I'm going to be putting out, mid-tempo related to this sort of sound. I think this is the new sound. I think the mid-tempo genre could use a bit more creativity. So yeah, thanks for watching. I will be doing this a lot more every Sunday. I'm going to try to do a live stream. Typically, I'm producing, but this time I just wanted to show everybody, how I made the song. Hope you like it. Keep streaming it. Add it to your playlists. Appreciate all the support. I'll see you next time.